The Research and Evidence Division, we have a wide range of research programs that DFID is funding across adaptation and low carbon development. So on adaptation and resilience to weather and climate risks, and on environment and water security, and then on clean energy, on climate compatible growth, and then also in our agricultural research team, a huge program of work there on climate resilient agriculture and food systems for the future, and also some work on reducing agricultural emissions. I'm going to talk a bit about the Future Climate for Africa programme, which has been DFID's flagship climate science programme, which has been running for the last 5 years, funded by DFID and the Natural Environment Research Council in the UK. And this has been a really exciting programme. I think one of the most amazing things about it is that it genuinely has achieved this dual aim that it had to generate fundamentally new climate science that was focused on Africa, and also throughout the course of the programme ensure that science was brought into use through this range of pilot studies. So there were 3 aims to the programme. One, that it would significantly improve scientific understanding of climate variability and change across Africa and the impact on decisions. 2, that it would demonstrate flexible methods for how to integrate that information and tools into decision making, and that it would improve medium term, so 5 to 40 year decision making, policies, planning and investment by a real range of African stakeholders and donors like DFID. And I think it genuinely has managed to do that. It's structured with one kind of pan-African consortium, which has been led by the UK Met Office, but with climate scientists from across Africa working together to develop new, very high resolution climate model projections for Africa, which have really changed our understanding of, in particular, rainfall and how that's behaving now and how it will behave in the future. And then there are 4 regional consortia that are working. So in West Africa, the African Monsoon Multidisciplinary Analysis 2050 project has been working on understanding how the monsoon will change in future decades across West Africa. And you might have seen that that's done some very interesting work on mesoscale convective systems and storms and flooding in West Africa, and also some work on climate smart agriculture in Senegal. Then in East Africa, the High Crystal project has looked at how to integrate hydro and climate science into policy decisions for climate resilient infrastructure and livelihoods in East Africa. That's worked particularly in Kisumu and Kampala, there on wash and urban sanitation in urban and rural contexts. And then in East and Central Africa, the Umfula project has really looked at decision making under uncertainty and improving the way that those techniques can be used to inform major decisions around infrastructure and dam projects, but thinking about the intersection between water, the needs from water, both for the environment, for energy and for food, and that real kind of nexus, those real nexus issues. And then in Southern Africa, the Fractal project has taken a very radically different approach to thinking about climate information use for building climate resilient cities. So starting with groups of people within individual cities across 9 cities across Southern Africa to really understand what are the burning issues for that city, and then understanding what are the sensitivities of that city to current climate, and then thinking by taking a climate narratives approach, thinking about how that city will need to develop in the future in order to thrive under climate change. We're now in the Research and Evidence Division thinking of how we can take programmes like Future Climate for Africa, like WISER, which you'll hear a bit more about from Helen and other work that we've supported on weather and climate and disaster risk reduction and environment. What we really want to do is now bring these different individual threads of research programmes together onto one integrated programme. So we're planning we're just finishing the business case for a new framework programme on climate adaptation and resilience research. And the aim with this is that it would be structured to cover 3 kind of interacting areas. So one on, the development of services, tools, technology to inform immediate decisions that need to be made on to bring about climate adaptation and resilience. So that's what can be done now to inform immediate and upcoming decisions, plans, and investments. Then secondly, a theme around new research. And then thirdly, on capacity strengthening, because it's just such a key part along the whole chain, all the way through from science to services, and to the use and the uptake of that science to inform decisions. And then a key consideration is that this work needs to be relevant in different contexts, in stable states and also in fragile and conflict afflicted states. We've started thinking in this kind of beehive fashion around the core features of CLARE. We really want this to be a demand, and what's different about this program to the way that we structured our previous programs, how we can get it to function in this way that brings together these different strands. And we think that, central to this is that we're doing demand-led research that informs policy plans, investments, decisions that are really being made. So we're starting from the decisions that people are trying to make, understanding the information that they use to make those decisions, and the barriers to the uptake of information, science, data to inform those decisions, and to understand the gaps and the information that they're missing, and then to target the research towards those priority gaps. We also want to encourage a systems approach, looking at these integrated systems and considering how climate change affects the whole system and not just individual aspects of it. We want to improve the way that research is commissioned to make it more co-designed and co-produced with the people who are actually going to be using the information at the end of the day. And building local capacity to do and use research is crucial, I think, for really bringing this uptake of use of research at scale. We want it to be a flexible and responsive programme that can be reactive and responsive, but also look ahead and be a bit horizon scanning, but to the needs that are identified by those of you out in country offices and regional departments. We're also planning to take a rolling approach to research, so that we won't commission all of the projects at the beginning, and so that will help with that. And we want to build synergies between the different initiatives, and we'll planning some cross-cutting components. So we'll have different individual strands of work, of different projects, but we are planning to have one overarching cross-cutting component on capacity strengthening, monitoring, evaluation, learning, and knowledge management and knowledge brokering. And then, of course, there are important cross-links to your country office programs, the regional framework programs, cross-government priorities, of course, the COP objectives around adaptation and resilience in particular. And then we also want to link up well with and complement what other donors are planning. We've just got here how we see this programme providing the underpinning evidence and research for the other framework programmes that are currently being devised that are more to do with the implementation by the regional departments. So, there's the Asia Pacific region are also developing a climate implementation programme, and I know that Africa Regional Department in DFID have a business case now finalised for their success programme. We see our research programme as providing the underpinning research to inform those programmes and be responsive to them, and we've kind of got this kind of two-way supply and demand going between these different circles. And there's also an important role for the RED research hubs to play in helping at that interface. But I'm really keen to hear from advisors in region on how you think we can best design this programme and structure it in order to be responsive to the needs that you identify in your country offices, the needs that are identified for research and evidence through the framework programmes, and how we can best support you through providing robust scientific evidence to inform the decisions that you're trying to make and to bring about climate resilient development. Basically, I guess there's two ways you could answer this. One is by saying there is really much more we could be doing to make better use of research and evidence to inform the climate resilient development and programs that DFID is funding. So I think that's one big thing for us all to kind of bear in mind, that there is a lot of research out there, and we've set up a climate mainstreaming facility under Future Climate for Africa to provide access to technical assistance from a group of experts and consultants who can help country offices and teams across DFID to be able to draw upon the most relevant kind of research and evidence to inform their program design in particular, but also portfolio reviews that country offices might be undertaking. So that's available, 15 days of support from the Climate Mainstream Facility, available free of charge to all teams across DFID. So please do get in touch with me if you want more information about that. So that's one way. And I think that one of the things that we really need to do through the new programme is look at how to move beyond these pilot studies and into kind of routes to scale for these types of initiatives. So for instance, I mentioned the Fractal project under Future Climate for Africa, which has worked in cities. I think that's the impact that has had in those cities has been profound. But I think that we could roll that out in many cities across Africa, but we would need to find a way to do that through other programs, because the research and evidence funding and program funding only goes so far. So we need to find better ways to enable the programs to take up successful pilot studies and roll them out at scale. And I think that looking at that mechanism will be one of the things that the new CLARE program can do. One of the things that I've been thinking that we should try and tackle through one of the initiatives that are trying to launch at COP26, an Adaptation Research Alliance, which I think there's two sides to that. One will be on research funders and getting them to fund more research that's directly for action and looking at solutions and looking at the relative effectiveness of those different ones. I think that the real challenge with looking at effectiveness in the way that there is not one kind of common metric for adaptation or resilience, and so scoring these things on a kind of cost effectiveness basis is a bit meaningless. So I think that really you need to be looking at cost benefit assessments for each of your individual things, and also looking across your portfolio of what you're doing and thinking about how does it really enable the development objectives that you're trying to achieve and under a changing climate. So I think this is quite a tricky area, but I also think that under that Adaptation Research Alliance, we'll be trying to engage with the funders of adaptation, so things like the Green Climate Fund, the Adaptation Fund, the multilateral development banks, and trying to encourage them to engage in more concerted monitoring, evaluation, learning, and embedded research within the adaptation projects that they are funding themselves. And that will give us a better understanding of the effectiveness of different actions that are being funded over time. So I think there's two ways we can try and do that. We did undertake a Best Buys exercise for climate change through a joint effort between RED, CED and the Chief Economist's Office, and with some help from some external experts, Paul Watkis and Will Blythe, our Senior Research Fellow. But it was done in a very rapid time frame to meet a very specific ask from Chief Economists around cost effectiveness. And while I personally think that is a useful measure, perhaps, and a more relevant measure for mitigation, where you can have one consistent metric, i.e., cost per ton of carbon dioxide saved, there isn't a similar metric that you can use for adaptation, as I just mentioned. So I think that the Best Buys is a challenging framing for adaptation, and I think instead we should be thinking about climate resilient development rather than thinking about weighing up individual measures with one metric that's being used to compare them. But in the meantime, there is guidance through the Climate and Environment Smart Guide, I think it's called. There's the value for money adaptation.